Welcome back to Big Dan's Airguns review channel. Why am I keeping this a secret? You've already seen what it is with the title of the video. It's a TX200 has finally laid itself into my greasy, grubby little mitts. We're going to take a look at this, as with all of our guns, and see what we like about the gun, what we don't like about the gun. And for an interesting little twist, and why I'm actually really excited to shoot one of these on camera, I am a HW97 man when it comes to modern underlevers. And don't get me wrong, this isn't the latest TX200, this is the Mark II, which some actually say was where the TX peaked. But again, we'll leave that for later on. I'm a HW97 man when it comes to the modern gear, so I'm quite interested to see how this gun actually performs in comparison to the 97. Some say it's better out the box. Well, we're going to find that out today, and then maybe even at a later date get a little bit of a shoot off on the go between the pair of them and do a modern underlever shoot off, something to run alongside our classic gear. So let's have a look at the TX, see what she's got and what she's made of, and let's move on to features. So starting off at the rear of the rifle, we do have a nicely finished recoil pad here, which is also vented. One thing I will mention, this rifle in particular comes with the right-hand focused Monte Carlo stock. I believe you can get them in an ambidextrous sort of setup or a left-hand friendly setup, but I'm not sure if they came in the Mark II or if they are a custom stock jobby, but there are things out there and solutions out there if you are a lefty and fancy this sort of type of rifle. As we move slightly further on, you can see the checkering is a nice sort of traditional style of checkering, which is the same on the grip and also the forestock there. The later Mark III models do come with a fleur-de-lis sort of design, which some like, some think it's a bit too much. I think it's quite smart, but personally I think you can't really go wrong with checkering, can you? As we move on to the trigger, now this is where things get interesting for me. I'm a Viararc man when it comes to modern underlevers, and they do say that the CD unit, the non-believers will tell us, is actually every bit as good, if not better, than the Viararc record. So that would be an interesting thing to look into when we get to the handling section. The other thing that I do like about this though, which I can see already, is that it has a set back trigger design. This is where I think it's going to really have an advantage over the Viararc unit, because they can have a bit of a long length of pull. The other thing this gun comes with is an automatic safety design. You can see very similar to what Viararc's got on basically their entire range of rifles, more or less. Where this definitely sets itself apart though from the Viararcs and such and most other underlevers on the market is this rifle comes with an anti-bear trap mechanism, and what that is obviously, so with the sliding breech design, say you're loading a pellet and it didn't have the mechanism, if you jerk the trigger or something like that, it's going to release the piston inside the gun, and if you're loading the pellet at the same time, you're going to lose a finger. With this, however, it locks the underlever in place so you can safely load the gun. Of course, I still recommend holding the underlever with your hand just to be safe, and to release it you press this button on the right hand side of the gun, which will then allow you to put the underlever back in its original position then for firing. So interesting way of going about it. We'll see what that's like when we get to the handling section. The other thing we'll mention real quick is the breech itself. This has a similar sliding breech, I should say, design in comparison to the HW77 and 97. However, this is focused on the right hand side instead of simply basically being engulfed by the entire action, more or less sliding back, or it being central to the action. So that'd be interesting to have a little play with. And obviously this is an underlever designed rifle, so basically grab the underlever with this, no buttons to press, and give it a yank down and it will cock the gun for you. So not very fiddly with that, potentially fiddly with the bear trap release, but we'll see what that's like actually in practice. Overall, it's a very, very well spec'd gun, and it's easy to see why people maybe go for these. It's a quality looking and feeling bit of kit, but that's what it's got on paper, not what it's got actually in the field. So let's put it in the shoulder, see how it all comes together, and see what we think. Okay, so handling with the TX200. What is it like now? We can finally give it a bit of a cuddle. Mixed bag. I'll tell you why, but you have to bear in mind it's also potentially a me problem more than anything else. But it'd be interesting to see if anyone else has noticed this in the comments as well. And again, they have slightly tweaked the stock between the Mark II and the Mark III. Maybe it's a bit easier to grip. For me, I've got larger hands, so for me it's a bit uncomfortable. The palm swell is a bit odd, to put it inaccurately, to be fair. It's a bit odd. It's a bit too swollen maybe here. I can't really comfortably get my rather large hands around it and then get to the trigger at the same time. It feels like there's a lot of pressure on my wrist here. not massively comfortable, to be honest. But again, if you've got smaller hands, or normal hands we'll call it, if you're built correctly, I'm sure you probably wouldn't have much of a problem at all. The thing I will mention though, which is fantastic, is the weight and balance. Don't get me wrong, we've got a smaller Hawk Sport scope on here, which is going to keep the weight down compared to when we've reviewed some of the other guns with the great big conuses on top. And this will have a conus a bit later on. If anything, it's only going to bring the weight further back with a larger scope. And the weight already in balance is absolutely fantastic. We'll put, hopefully, editor is going to put a little note in there so you can see the actual weight when we've weighed it off camera. But this is a fabulously balanced thing. It really, really is. So now, let's have a go at cocking it, and we're going to sadly see another problem. Again, might only be me, but let me put this scenario in your head. You've just shot a rabbit, another one's turned up, his mate's turned up to see what's up with his buddy who you've just aerated his head, and all of a sudden you want to get a second shot off quickly and quietly. Well, we're trying to be as quiet as possible, and ooh, rabbits are quite sensitive to mechanical noises. I don't know as though that's not going to scare one off, which is a bit of a shame, because I like the idea and the thought process behind the bear trap, anti-bear trap mechanism on this, but the execution I think could have been a lot better. It's not exactly the most discreet thing on the planet, and neither will you be when you need to have arms, well, the amount of arms as an octopus, as you've got to then push this button on the side once you've loaded it, then you can return the underlever, then you can grip it, and then take aim again. Dare I say it, my beloved Webley Eclipse, which is pretty famous for being a bit of a faff even when it was first brought out, is possibly less of a faff than loading this, which again, some guns it gives it character. This one I'm not quite so sure, as though it's not just a bit too awkward for awkwardness sake. So let's whack that safety off. One thing where it does call points back is I've never had a TX where that safety didn't fail. Via arcs, yes. Again, I know I got targeted last time I said that in some of my videos. People said, well, mine's never gone wrong. Out of the three that I've, well, four that I've shot, only the HW57 off memory didn't usually fail to engage back here. But we're waffling now, so let's have a go with that trigger. There's second. I do love that blade as well, that setback design. Why doesn't every gun company use a setback blade? They always feel nicer. There's second. Right, that is really, really nice, and to the point where through gritted teeth I might actually kind of have to confess to the Air Arms boys watching this, despite the fact I've slagged it a little bit at this moment in time, the trigger is every bit as good as the record. It's not perfect, but neither's the record. It's not perfect, and I'll show you why. Clack, clack, clack. There's a little bit of creep on the second stage. Now that might be able to be tweaked out, I don't know. This I haven't touched the trigger at all, so bring that back, push the button. Ugh, there we go, it's ready to go now. There's a dear little bit of creep on the second stage. If I can show this on camera, let me see if I can get a little closer to you. Ooh, it's bad, isn't it? You can see my zits in higher detail now. Right, so there we go, second. Might be hard to see, but there's a little bit of movement on that second before it breaks. Is it enough to put me off or potentially pull me off target? No. In fact, are any really of the negatives I've mentioned about this gun putting me off shooting it? Well, the fact I'm loading yet another pellet for no reason should also tell you no. It's a nice gun. It's a very, very nice gun. And the finish on there, although this could do with a bit of an oily rag, the finish and the bluing on there, or blacking, is fantastic. It really, really is. Genuinely, I'd say a step above most that are out there. Even, yes, dare I say it, the German brands. Right, so, taking aim, let's go. There's a stone there. Let's have a go at him. Let's have a look at recoil. Oh, that is so superb. The other thing people say is that the TX outshoots the HW97 out of the box, and my 97, my 177, shoots bloody lovely. But they're right again. That is smoother than any out-of-the-box 97 I've ever shot. Don't get me wrong, she's a 2.2, so it will be smoother to shoot than a 177, but that is beautiful. And on top of that, this is a non-modified gun, as you can hear, because I think anyone else would have took that bloody clack, clack, clack out of it. But this is a non-modified gun. But the other thing I'm going to mention, so I mean, even I'm struggling with that now, is there's a little bit of twang, and that mic usually makes things worse than what they really are. There's a tiny little bit of twang, but it's not much. Have a listen to this. Donk. But it's only quiet, it's quite muted. Comparing that to most other guns out of the box, spring guns, it's pretty much whisper quiet, to be honest, twang wise. So overall handling, bit of a mixed bag. Some of it I think is my fault, maybe on some I'm being overly critical, but then considering the reputation these things have, it's only fair that we are very, very critical on these, like we were with the 97 and such. Handling wise, I think it's quite nice, is what I would say. It's not perfect, it's quite nice. Anyways, let's see if that recoil is because it's only doing about 3 feet-pound and a CP2 would have more power. So, let's get the chronograph out and see what she's doing. Now here's where things should get really, really fun. See, the TX has got a hell of a good reputation through user reviews, professional reviews and such like that for having tremendous accuracy. We may struggle a bit today because the wind, as you can see, is blowing quite badly. They're not ideal shooting conditions at all. Met Office says it's supposedly around 30-ish miles an hour gusts. Looking at what we've got blowing today, I'd say that's pretty accurate. On top of that, it's going to absolutely pour it down in a second by the looks of things. Tremendous. Anyways, we've got the target set up at 27 yards. I'm going to be sat back here. You can see the table there with the rest on there. Just the backpack rest, nothing too fancy. We'll do 5 shot groups straight into the card to see which pellet the rifle likes the best, and then we'll push it back to our 45-yard mark. We can see the piece of wood sat back there. The wind is really starting to rev up now. I'll try my best to take shots between the wind, but we'll see how we get on. Rest assured though, we are going to do another video of the TX in the near future, so if things are a little screwy here, wait and see. We'll get a better day to get another shot done. Right then, so that's our brief walk down of the accuracy testing. I better get the rifle in my shoulder and get to work now. Accuracy testing over and done with. Down below here on the right we have the worst pellets on test. Now they weren't terribly bad. No, I'm just kidding. They were pretty awful, to be honest. So as we come back up, we have a middle of the line. So we've got the Barracuda Extremes. This group looks messier than what it actually was, because this is the rear end, essentially, of the target card, the bit you're looking at, not the bit that I'm looking at. So it looks a bit worse than it was. It actually wasn't that terrible. As we come across the Remington Thunder Barracuda, or H&N Barracuda, these had a lot of potential. We had 3 shots touching on the right, but then we just had that one left and one underneath. The pellet here you can completely disregard, because that was basically before I even knew where the pellets were going, and I was essentially aiming all over the place to try and get an impact on card. In the end, we settled at the number 3, if you can see that on the orange ring, and 2 mil dots up. That's how much these were dropping. The SMK Victory Heavy Shocks. Now, I do quite like these pellets because they're only budget, but we have got pretty much a 20p group on the go there, as you can see, so they're genuinely not too bad at all. As we come up, we have our leading pellets. So we've got the not Remington, what am I talking about? RWS Superfield here. 4 pellets under a 5p piece, but 1 just going low, if you see that. As we come left, we have the FXs, which are pretty much a similar story. Pretty much a bang on 5p piece group, with 1 little tiny quadrant of a pellet hole here just underneath the 5p. And then we move on to the JSB Exact Jumbo Heavies, which I don't think we even need the 5p piece. I'll just put it next to it. Pretty damn stonking accuracy, it's got to be said, considering the conditions. Now, we have upgraded the scope, as we may have said earlier. We're now running a Conus Pro 6-24x44. We're going to set the target up at our 45-yard mark, right over there. You can see the piece of wood sitting there. And we're going to go again. The wind has maybe eased off a tiny little bit, but it's still not exactly ideal. It's behaving, or it's on its best behavior at the moment for the camera. I've had to do 2 takes at this, because if you can, I think I mentioned it a second ago, that's the rear end of that target card, because the front end, the wind picked up, it flipped this tin over and it took off. This is the only piece of the target I can find, so God knows where the other bit went. Right then, so we're ready, we're set. Let's set the target up at 45 yards and let's see what the Air Arms TX200 can do. Okay, so Airarms TX200, what do we like, what don't we like, and how did it shoot at 45 yards? Well, we'll get the negatives out the way first. As we say, no gun is perfect on this channel, no matter what it is, or no matter how much I absolutely want to love it. And what I mean by that is, this gun's not really designed, as mentioned, for larger hands. If you're a chap or chapette with big hands, you're going to find the stock on here, or the palm swell, a little bit awkward to get a hold of. That said, the Mark III, I've not shouldered one of those. They might be a lot more comfortable. And the overall design of the stock is gorgeous on this. The shaping of it is fantastic. But again, bear in mind, you might find your wrist starts getting a little bit achy over time. There's a dear little bit of microscopic creep on this one on the second stage. Hopefully you saw that in the camera, or in the footage, I should say. However, that being said, take that as a neutral more than a negative, because I'm sure you can adjust that straight out of this trigger, at which point it would then genuinely, boys, put the pitchforks down, in my opinion, be a better unit than the Record Viarc trigger unit, simply because of it is still an incredibly sweet pull. And on top of this, that setback trigger blade is absolutely gorgeous. Speaking of gorgeous, it's a beautiful looking gun. I'd even go as far as to say it's quite possibly not just the prettiest underlever on the market, although I'd love to get my hands on the Diana 460 or 440, but Springers in general, it is a fantastic looking thing. The proportions just look right. Right, now we get to the important bits, which are accuracy and also power and consistency. 25 or 27, I should say, yards, it does shoot incredibly well, especially with the JSB heavy jumbos. Bear in mind the wind conditions today were atrocious, and also with the FXs at 27 it shot well. The Superfields, not quite so much. I mean, it did still shoot well. We had one shot going wayward. I think that was a bit of evil foreshadowing going on there, sadly. But in general, at 27, fantastic. At 45, sadly, things didn't quite go so well, barring the Superfield, which surprised me. The JSB Exact Heavy Diablos shotgunned all over the place. The FXs were pretty much the same. The RWSs, however, right, now we do have one flyer, like I said, evil foreshadowing. However, the rest of the group is pretty much, barring that little, can I wangle it? No, I don't think I can. It's pretty much, we'll call it, a 20 pence group, barring one flyer, which could have been me, could have been pellet, could have been wind, who knows. But that's pretty damn impressive considering the conditions. The other thing I'll say is spread-wise and power. We may have mentioned it earlier, but pay no attention if you can see that to shot number 21 that I did not do. The Coldwell chronograph is a fantastic bit of kit. In fact, in my opinion, the best chronograph on the market. But if you switch it off while it's plugged in, it'll glitch out a tiny little bit and it'll give you a phantom shot that you never did. So rest assured, the TX, she's not doing 26.88 feet-pounds. She's averaging around 10.8-ish feet-pounds. And on top of that, with a spread of only, I believe, 13 feet per second. So she's pretty damn consistent, it must be said. The only negative, outright, blatant negative, I'd say about the TX, and I'm sure you get used to it just like anything, but it's only fair. People slagged off my beloved Webley Eclipse for this, so it's only fair I do it to this as well. Suck it up. But no, essentially, it ain't half a faff to use. Don't get me wrong, like I said, you can get used to anything, but at the same time, also I will say, actually as a side note, you can, probably I'll edit something in, you can cock it without the clack, clack, clack sound going, but it means having to push the underlever release button or the anti-bear trap button and then pulling the lever down. So essentially you're then cradling the rifle, pressing that button and pulling that lever down all at the same time. Basically, the gun wants you to be an octopus to use the thing. If you don't do that, you are then left with, don't get me wrong, I love safety features, the more the merrier, but I wish they could redesign that clack notching system. It is very loud, it's very intrusive. I would not be surprised if you could hear it from our 27 yard mark, maybe even further than that. It's a bit unnecessary. If they could redesign that to be, again, hate to say it, like the Viarc system, where it's just whisper quiet, no clacking, no notches, no nothing, it would be a far better setup than what is on this. But again, safety features are always nice. It's a very safe feeling gun to use, and it is a very well-made gun to go with it. But with that said, I think we should basically wrap up this review. TX200, yay or nay? For me, it's a yay. And I am going to use this gun. There you go, if you can see that. That was the wind just then. There it is, nearly blowing even targets off the table. We're going to use this gun for another video. If you've seen much of our channel, we've done a classic underlever shoot-off where my, frankly, fabulous Webley Eclipse has taken on the HW77 and is currently 1 for 1 with it. What if we answer the question once and for all, what is better, HW97 or TX200? And we put this thing up against a 97, one of which just so happens to have landed in my possession in 2.2. That could be a little bit of a spicy one perhaps, and no matter what happens, we will find a winner out of the pair of them. That could be a good bit of fun. Right, so that said, keep your eyes peeled on the channel. We'll get that done and give the TX another go with some different pellets where I'm sure it will do better. We're waffling now, so we'll cut it off. Thank you ever so much for watching. We'll give this gun another go as soon as we can when the weather hopefully calms down, and we'll see what she can do then. Thanks ever so much for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.